there is a quiet power that most people overlook. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It grows in silence. Silence has a way of revealing what noise hides. When you remove constant distraction, something unfamiliar begins to surface. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You are no longer escaping into conversations, notifications, or the opinions of others. You are left alone with your own mind, and for many, this is the place they try to avoid. But if you stay there, without rushing to fill the space, you begin to notice patterns. Thoughts that once passed unnoticed now become clear. You start to see how often you doubt yourself, how quickly you react, how easily your mood is influenced by things outside of you. This awareness is not weakness. It is the beginning of clarity. In silence, your mind slows down. The constant urgency fades, and what truly matters starts to stand out. You begin to question things you once accepted without thinking. Why do certain things trigger you? Why do you seek validation? Why do you feel the need to prove something to others? These questions do not arise in noise. They require stillness. As you continue, your thoughts become less chaotic. You stop believing every thought that appears. Instead, you observe them. You create distance between yourself and your reactions. This space allows you to respond with intention rather than impulse. You are no longer controlled by every emotion that passes through you. Clarity is not something you force. It develops naturally when you stop overwhelming your mind. When there is less input, there is more understanding. You begin to recognize what is important and what is not. Many of the things that once felt urgent lose their weight. You realize how much of your stress came from unnecessary concerns. Silence also brings honesty. Without distraction, it becomes difficult to lie to yourself. You see where you have been avoiding responsibility. You notice the habits that are holding you back. You become aware of the gap between who you are and who you want to be. This awareness can feel heavy, but it is necessary. Without seeing clearly, nothing can truly change. Over time, this clarity strengthens your direction. Decisions become simpler, not because life becomes easier, but because your mind is no longer scattered. You know what aligns with you and what does not. You stop second-guessing yourself as much. You move with more certainty, even if the path is still uncertain. This is the power of silence. It does not give you answers instantly, but it removes the confusion that was blocking them. When the noise fades, your inner voice becomes easier to hear, and that voice, when not drowned out, begins to guide you with a quiet, steady clarity. Most people are taught, directly or indirectly, to look outward for validation. From a young age, approval becomes a measure of worth. A kind word lifts you. A harsh opinion lowers you. Over time, this creates a habit where your energy is constantly directed toward how others see you, how they respond to you, and whether you are accepted. Without realizing it, you begin to live in reaction to the outside world. When you choose silence and turn your focus inward, this pattern starts to break. At first, it feels unfamiliar. There is no immediate feedback, no reassurance, no external signal telling you that you are on the right path. This can create doubt. You may question whether your efforts matter if no one sees them. But this is where a deeper shift begins. Your energy, once scattered across people, opinions, and expectations, starts to return to you. Instead of seeking approval, you begin to observe your own actions. You ask yourself if you are improving, if you are being honest, if you are staying consistent. The source of validation slowly moves from outside to within. This does not mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop depending on them to define your value. You begin to act based on your own standards rather than trying to meet the expectations of everyone around you. This shift creates a sense of stability. Your mood is no longer easily shaken by praise or criticism. You remain steady because your foundation is internal. As this continues, you start to notice how much energy was previously wasted trying to impress, trying to prove, trying to be understood by people who were not truly listening. All of this required effort, yet gave little in return. When you withdraw from that cycle, you free up that energy. That energy does not disappear. It transforms. You begin to invest it in yourself. You put it into learning, into improving your habits, into strengthening your discipline. You start doing things not for recognition, but for growth. There is a quiet satisfaction in this. No one needs to applaud it. No one needs to notice. The progress itself becomes enough. Over time, this builds a different kind of confidence. It is not loud or dependent on external success. It is steady and grounded. You trust yourself more because you have seen your own effort. You know what you are capable of, not because someone told you, but because you have experienced it directly. There is also a sense of freedom that comes with this shift. When you are no longer chasing validation, you are no longer controlled by it. You do not feel the same pressure to explain yourself, to justify your choices, or to constantly seek agreement. You move with more independence. This inward focus does not isolate you. It strengthens you. It allows your interactions with others to come from a place of stability rather than need. You are no longer trying to fill a gap through others. Instead, you bring a sense of completeness into your actions, your work, and your relationships. There is a version of effort that the world celebrates. It is visible, loud, and often shared. People admire results, achievements, and moments of success that can be seen and recognized. But there is another kind of effort that receives no attention. It happens in private, without applause, without acknowledgement. This is where discipline is truly formed. When no one is watching, there is no pressure to perform. There is no audience to impress, no expectations to meet. In these moments, your actions are no longer influenced by external reward. What you choose to do in this space reveals the depth of your commitment. It is easy to stay consistent when others are observing. Recognition can be motivating. Praise can push you forward. But when that is removed, only your intention remains. You either continue or you stop. This is where many people struggle. Without validation, their effort fades. Not because they lack ability, but because they have not yet built internal discipline. Discipline begins quietly. It starts with small decisions that seem insignificant. Waking up at a certain time, following through on a plan, completing a task even when you do not feel like it. These actions are not dramatic. They do not create immediate results, but they build something deeper. Each time you act without needing to be seen, you strengthen a part of yourself that does not rely on external motivation. You begin to trust your own consistency. You realize that you can depend on yourself, even when no one else is there to push you. There is a certain resistance that appears in these moments. The mind looks for comfort. It looks for reasons to delay, to avoid, to choose the easier path. Without awareness, it is easy to follow these impulses, but when you recognize them, you create a choice. You can either follow the habit of avoidance, or you can act with intention. Over time, these choices accumulate. They shape your character more than any single achievement ever could. Discipline is not built in one moment of effort. It is built through repetition, through consistency, through showing up again and again without needing a reward. This kind of growth is often invisible at first. There may be no immediate change in your external situation. It can feel as though nothing is happening. But internally, something is strengthening. Your ability to stay focused improves. Your resistance to distraction increases. Your tolerance for discomfort grows. You begin to understand that discipline is not about forcing yourself in a harsh way. It is about alignment. It is about doing what needs to be done, even when it is not exciting, even when it is not easy. It is about honoring your own standards, regardless of whether anyone is watching. As this continues, your actions become more consistent. You rely less on motivation and more on structure. You no longer wait to feel ready. You act because it is part of who you are becoming. In this quiet process, something powerful is formed. Not through recognition, but through repetition. Not through attention, but through intention. There is a natural connection between what happens within you and what unfolds around you. Many people try to change their external situation first. They focus on controlling outcomes, adjusting circumstances, and forcing results. But when the inner state is unsettled, these efforts often feel inconsistent and exhausting. No matter how much action is taken, there is still a sense of resistance. When you begin to align yourself internally, this dynamic starts to shift. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions more stable, and your intentions more defined. You are no longer pulled in different directions by conflicting desires or reactions. Instead, there is a sense of coherence in the way you think, feel, and act. This alignment creates a different kind of energy. Your actions become more deliberate rather than reactive. You are not constantly adjusting based on what happens around you. You move with a sense of direction that comes from within. Because of this, your decisions begin to reflect who you truly are, rather than who you feel pressured to be. As your inner state becomes more stable, the way you interact with the world changes. You communicate more clearly. You respond instead of reacting. You recognize what deserves your attention and what does not. This clarity reduces unnecessary conflict, both within yourself and in your surroundings. Opportunities often appear clearer in this state, not because they suddenly did not exist before, but because you are now able to recognize them. When your mind is scattered, you overlook possibilities or hesitate to act on them. But when you are aligned, you are more prepared to respond when something meaningful presents itself. There is also a shift in the way challenges are experienced. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. This is not because they have become easier, but because your internal response has changed. You are less affected by pressure, less influenced by fear, and more grounded in your approach. People around you may begin to respond differently as well, not because you are trying to change them, but because your presence has changed. When you are steady, clear, and intentional, it influences the quality of your interactions. You no longer engage in the same patterns of reaction or confusion, and this naturally alters the dynamic. This alignment does not require perfection. It is not about eliminating all uncertainty or emotion. It is about reducing inner conflict. When your values, actions, and intentions are connected, there is less friction in the way you move through life. As this continues, your path begins to feel more natural. You spend less time questioning every step and more time moving forward with quiet confidence. The need to force outcomes begins to fade. Instead, there is a sense that things are unfolding in response to your clarity and consistency. What once felt complicated starts to simplify. Decisions that once caused hesitation become more direct. You begin to trust your judgment more, not because you are always certain, but because you are aligned with yourself. There is a strong desire in many people to control what happens around them. They try to manage outcomes, influence others, and shape situations so that everything goes according to their expectations. When things do not unfold the way they hoped, frustration appears. This creates a cycle of tension where more effort is applied, yet less peace is felt. Control, when directed outward, is limited. You cannot fully control how others think, how they behave, or how life unfolds. Even when things seem stable, they can change without warning. Relying on external control creates uncertainty because it is built on something that is always shifting. When you begin to shift your focus inward, this approach starts to change. Instead of trying to manage everything outside of you, you start to observe what is within your reach. Your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, your discipline. These are areas where real influence exists. At first, this shift can feel subtle. You may notice how quickly your mind reacts to situations, how easily emotions rise, how certain patterns repeat themselves. Instead of trying to suppress or avoid these responses, you begin to understand them. This awareness creates a space where change becomes possible. Self-mastery does not mean controlling every thought or emotion. It means developing the ability to remain steady in the presence of them. You recognize what is happening internally, but you are not immediately carried away by it. This creates a sense of stability that does not depend on what is happening outside. As you continue, your reactions become more intentional. You pause before responding. You consider your actions rather than acting on impulse. This does not slow you down in a negative way. It gives you clarity. You begin to act in alignment with your values rather than temporary feelings. This process requires consistency. It is not something that happens in a single moment. It develops through repeated awareness and small adjustments. Each time you choose to respond with intention instead of reaction, you strengthen this ability. Over time, it becomes more natural. There is also a release that comes with letting go of unnecessary control. You stop trying to force outcomes that are not within your reach. You stop exhausting yourself by trying to predict or manage everything. This creates space for a different experience of life. Instead of resistance, there is more flow. You still take action. You still make decisions, but there is less tension behind them. You are not acting out of fear or urgency. You are acting from a place of clarity and steadiness. This shift does not remove challenges. Difficult situations will still arise, but your relationship with them changes. You are less shaken, less reactive, and more capable of handling what comes. As this continues, there is a growing sense of trust. Not in the sense that everything will always go as planned, but in the understanding that you can handle what happens. This trust is not dependent on external certainty. It is built through your own experience of remaining steady, aware, and intentional. So, in the end, it is not about rushing to fix everything around you. It is not about forcing life to move faster or bending it to your will. It is about returning to yourself. Again and again, in silence, you begin to understand. In focus, you begin to strengthen. In patience, you begin to trust. You realize that not everything needs your reaction. Not everything deserves your energy. And not everything is meant to be controlled.